to Reportage. This is Danish bin Nabi. In today's segment of Reportage, I shall have a discussion about the recently released book, The Peacemakers by Ghazala Wahab. The book dives deep in the communal question of India, which now is Bharat, and offers a hope to the readers. The underlining message of the book is that one can only move forward if he or she loves the other community. Listen into this interview with Ghazala Wahab. Ghazala, as the book The Peacemakers is about the communities of India. It's about the peace, basically. It's about the hope. The initial reports that are coming since morning is about the success of movie Jawan by Shah Rukh Khan. And the reviews that I have been reading since morning, the movie is exactly about peace and hope. How does this Indian cinema helps in bringing the communities together?
I have not watched Jawan, so I will not be able to draw upon it at all. But I can answer the larger question of Indian cinema being responsive to the society. And this has been seen since our independence or partition, whichever way you want to look at that momentous events of 1947. Our post-independent or post-partition films tried to bridge this wide communal divide which existed at that point. If you see, there were a lot of films which focused on this communal harmony. I think one of the earliest films that I remember was probably Dharmatma, in which Shashi Kapoor plays the son of a Muslim woman, and he is brought up by a Hindu family, and he doesn't know that his mother was a Muslim. And he grows up to be a Hindu bigot. But in the end, then finally everything becomes all right, and he becomes a sensible person that his parents hoped he would eventually be. And actually, this is a very important film, and I hope more people watch that film even today. I don't know where it is available, but it should be watched, because the film, and probably that is one of the reasons it did not do very well, is because there are a lot of dialogues in the film, exchange of conversation between the character played by Shashi Kapoor and his siblings. So Shashi Kapoor kind of repeats what we now call WhatsApp University information, and his siblings counter that by saying, but your information is incorrect, and our history shows that we've had a tradition of living together, and our history shows something different than what you are saying. So there are a lot of these exchanges. So in that sense, the film was not just meant to entertain, but it was meant to also educate the people who were then taken up by the hateful propaganda by the right-wing outfits. So it was a very, very important film.
Before I dwell in this great book, one more question on the Indian cinema. In last 10 years, has the Bollywood, the cinema, the Indian cinema, stopped making such films which are communal harmonial films?
Yes, absolutely. And in the last, I don't recall the last 10 years as clearly as I recall the last 3 or 4 years, when we have seen this kind of an upsurge of films which pander to the right-wing propaganda, whether it was Kashmir Files or Kerala Story. I think that is the name of the film. And more recently, another film has come again, talking about the same kind of things. But the strength started much earlier, when we started to do action films, largely inspired by Hollywood. So if you recall the Hollywood films, things like films like Rambo, or there were a lot of other films where the protagonist goes out to defeat the enemies of the nation. And the enemy was always characterized either by a Russian character when the Cold War was on. So the enemy was always Russia. And thereafter, it was Islamist. So whether it was some kind of a war in Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or wherever. So the films were reflective of the political propaganda or the political messaging that the government was trying to convey to the larger audience. So in the similar vein, in India, when the global war on terrorism was going on, and terrorism became a buzzword, and everybody would think of anti-terror operations as the ultimate adrenal pumping kind of action. So even our films started to reflect that. And because we could not think of any other opponent or adversary, so willy-nilly our adversary was Pakistan. I mean, we could not conceptualize China. I think barring one or two films where China has been shown as an adversary, we've not really shown China as an enemy. So our enemy were either the terrorists
or Pakistan.
Or Pakistan.
Ghazala, now to the book. In the intro, you talk about the communal violence and you point out few things. That the propaganda by the right-wingers, especially the BJP, which is that there is an unchecked Muslim growth, that Muslim men seduce Hindu women. Then, very importantly, you say that administration actually helps and allows these rights in the very first place to take place. Explain to the viewers what you actually meant by that. Administration helps in the rights.
See, administration helps in continuation of violence in two ways. The first way is that it doesn't react. When our situation goes out of control, it holds itself back, allowing the mob to have a free run for a few hours. And I have often referred to this as a few hour syndrome. I have written about this in my columns in the past. I've written about this in my earlier book, Dragon on Our Doorstep. And I've again referred to it in the Peacemakers, that our law enforcement agencies are afflicted by this few hour syndrome, where they feel that if the mob is allowed to run its course, they'll probably either exhaust themselves out and the police may not have to take any action, or maybe in some way, in a tacit manner, they think that this rage needs to be boiled over, and the way milk boils over, then it cools down. So maybe they feel that if this rage boils over, then it will be easier for them to come in and control the situation. So this is one way in which they tacitly help the perpetrators of violence. The other is by targeting one community for their anti-riot during their anti-riot operations. So when they're trying to control the riots, they either open fire on only a particular community and not the other community, or when they're doing their cordon and search and they're rounding up people who they think were the perpetrators, they focus entirely on one particular community. So these are two ways in which they have been I wouldn't say complicit, but through acts of omission, they have been in some way given, they blink when violence takes place.
But whenever this communal violence takes place, the most important thing that is missing is about the justice. Why there is no justice for the people who go through all these communal tensions?
I think it's not a popular feeling. They feel that and considering that usually in a communal situation, it is the mob which perpetrates the violence. So they get the cover of hiding behind the mob. They get the cover of unidentified people, a group of people who perpetrated the violence. So they don't know who to identify. So this is an excuse by which the mobs are exonerated. And it's anybody's guess why they want to exonerate the mob.
What about this propaganda that there is an unchecked Muslim growth? Are Muslims grow much faster than Hindus in this country?
Not at all. There is absolutely no documentary evidence to support this assertion. In fact, Indian statistics as well as census, the last that census which happened in 2011, shows that the rate of population growth is almost identical amongst all communities. Some communities are growing much slower, like Christians and Parsis, but between the Hindus and the Muslims, the difference is of only 1 or 2 decimal points.
In the book, in the intro,
And
yeah, please.
yeah, and the rate of fertility is declining faster amongst the Muslims than the Hindus.
Than the other group. In the intro, in the same intro of the book, you also refer to a meeting with the NSA of 2005, where he tells you that the government first allows to go situation out of control, then puts in the money, and if it fails, uses the force. How do you see now what actually the incumbent NSA is doing in Manipur and in Jammu and Kashmir?
He was not the NSA at that time when I had met him. He was a retired officer. So what he was telling me was as a retired intelligence officer. Now, what he says actually makes a lot of sense, because this is the way our local level administration operates. Wherever you see, if you refer to your own experience in Kashmir and growing up, if there is a trouble brewing somewhere, the first reaction is to ignore it and hope that it will just go away. So you feel that nothing is happening. It's a small thing that is happening. It's a very local event which need not attract the attention of higher authorities. It is only when the situation goes a little out of control that you need, or you're forced to get the higher authorities involvement. But a lot of times you also try and brutally suppress the trouble, whatever is brewing, in the hope that this brutal suppression will nip the trouble there right in the bud level. So I think this has been a tendency of the law enforcement agencies as well as the local administration throughout the country. It's not exclusive to Kashmir or Manipur or Nagaland or any other specific state which are facing problems today.
You have visited Kashmir many times, and there is also a wonderful chapter on Kashmir in this book. You have defined 2 terms, which is normal and normalcy. Explain to the viewers, what do you mean by normal is different than normalcy when it comes to Kashmir?
I learned the difference in Kashmir only. This is not something I have come up with myself. And it is a very unique distinction which Kashmiris make between what is normal and what they hope would be normalcy. So normalcy, to my mind, would be a permanence of normal days, where there will be no violence, where there will be peace, and they would have the satisfaction of having found a resolution to the political problem which Kashmir is. So I think that would define what normalcy would be. And normal is absence of violence on any particular day.
You are a security expert, I must say that. Being an editor of one of the largest defense magazines, how do you view the developments of August 5th, 2019 as far as Jammu and Kashmir and as far as this northern region is concerned, where we have China on the one side and Pakistan on the other?
I think the events of 5th August 2019 were very, very personally, they were disturbing. I was very uneasy when I heard the news. And in terms of political and economic and as well as our strategic goals, I think it has been a bad move. As long as the fig leaf of autonomy or the Article 370 was there, we could move or maneuver our way around that and convey to the people of Kashmir that yes, their concerns are exercised our minds, and we are moving towards some sort of conversation with them and addressing their grievances. But when you removed it completely, when the government of India revoked it and announced that there is no problem, it is almost like wiping out a huge chunk of our history. I mean, we have had a conversation with not just the leaders from Kashmir, not just the elected leader, unelected political figureheads in Kashmir. We've had conversation with Pakistan on Kashmir, and not just by Dr. Manmohan Singh, but his predecessor, Vajpayee, and Vajpayee's Home Minister, Advani. So basically, what you did is, in one fell swoop, you declared that history started in 2019. There was nothing which was there which preceded that particular moment. So it doesn't work like this. Then if you look at it from the larger geostrategic manner, then by defining the borders of Ladakh, you actually told China that this is the limits of India and this is the limit of your eastern border. So China got upset, and we've seen the consequences of that now.
But the news that are coming from the Kashmir, they say that Kashmir has been developed and it's a model state now. There are no such news as what you are telling me about the geopolitics, not geostrategic things, or there are other things going on in Kashmir. They say that everything has been changed since 2019.
Well, good luck to them. I do not agree with this, because you can always propagate what you want to do, but the truth remains that the dissident voices have been silenced completely. There is no media to speak of. Journalists are scared, frightened. They have either left Kashmir, or they are now applying self-censorship to their own output. There are a lot of restrictions on free discussion and debates in the valley. If you look at the figures which somebody had forwarded to me, the mental illnesses have increased. There's a lot of psychological trauma that people, especially women, young women, are facing in Kashmir. The health parameters have gone down. So there are a lot of problems there, and it is not as wonderful as the government would like us to believe. And I personally feel that all of this does not bode well when you have a group of people, a large group of people, completely disaffected, disenchanted by your national narrative. Then it is trouble, and no nation can sideline a huge mass of people and hope to move forward.
Ghazala, you have also co-authored a book in 2005 on China with Parveen Swami. You fairly know Pakistani politics, their military very well. You know the geostrategic position of this area where Kashmir stands very well. What is, in your view, the likely possible solution to the Kashmir conflict?
See, the situation today is very, very different. I don't think now we are at a stage where we can think of going back in time and resuming dialogue what the government had started in 2005. So I really don't know what is the solution now, because China is now an active player in that region. It's strategic assets. The highways are running in the northern part of the state, also in what we call POK. So it has huge stakes in the region. So I don't know if there can be a unilateral solution where we decide that it is an integral part of India and everything is fine. That cannot happen. So I have no idea how things would shape up.
In the book, you have also talked about the Musharraf's 4-point formula. Is that the way forward?
I think that was the way forward then. But as I mentioned, now the situation has changed. After 2019, the situation has changed drastically. So
Is it
now I
particularly
don't.
because of China that the situation has drastically changed?
Yes, absolutely. Not only because of that, not only because of what we did in 2019, but also because its interests, its stakes have increased in the region. Its CEPC is running through that. So it has invested huge amount of money. So it will obviously ensure that it remains unharmed. So the ground situation is no longer what it was in 2000, between 2005 and 2007. So while conversation, the way it was happening then, could be the starting point, but how it should be conducted, what shape it will eventually take, nobody can say.
The book, The Peacemakers, your book, it ends up with a chapter on Bharat Jodo Yatra. Do you see its effect, the Bharat Jodo Yatra's effect on the people of India?
I did not join the yatra, so my information about the yatra has been all secondhand. What I read in the newspapers, what I saw on social media, the videos that I saw on social media, and all of that. Even before I read this chapter written beautifully by Ramani, even before that, I had a feeling that it was something momentous that was happening. It was filling, it was making people believe in an idea which nobody thought was possible. It was bringing them together with the idea of peace and hope, and also love. So I think it was one of the most positive things, positive movements that we have seen in a very long time.
Ghazala, my last question before we wind up this intriguing interview. On the cover of the book, there is this band-aid. What
Yes.
does this band-aid symbolizes?
I have not designed the cover, so I can only guess what the designer was trying to put across, is that each of us can act as a band-aid in times of despair, in times of violence, no matter how small you are. A band-aid is it's a very small band-aid, but it can
but it has a huge message of getting the communities together.
Yes, no, and healing the wounds.
It's about the healing.
Yes.
Ghazala, let's end this discussion on the healing part. Thank you for talking to me.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.